Hello, friends, family, world. Luke here with episode 17 of our Eurotrip 2019 travel series. If you aren't caught up, click on the little I button up here and go to our Eurotrip 2019 playlist to start from episode 1. Let's dive into part 3 of our time in the Faroe Islands. From where we last left off, we had gotten back from an amazing day of bike riding on the island of Sandøy. After a restful sleep back in Torshavn, we woke up to a bit of rainier weather. It was bound to happen. The Faroe Islands is known for not having the best weather consistently, so we weren't exactly cross about it. Any good days in the Faroe Islands are something to be grateful for, not expected. So we took the time on these rainier days to just take it easy and appreciate some of the smaller things about being there. We figured this was a good time to take in the misty and rainy atmosphere and hunker down in a cafe in downtown Torshavn called Panam Cafe. Another thing in town that we found was well suited for the rainy and moody weather was Skansen, a historic fortress built in the year 1580. After this, we enjoyed some afternoon drinks at a bar called Bar, where we got some local beers and gins that were quite tasty. We followed this up with sushi at a restaurant called Etika. The food was super tasty, and we felt that the Faroese sure do know how to prepare fish. For such a small city and a country with such a low population, Torshavn is surprisingly cosmopolitan. The next day was a bit fun and unexpected. While on the Faroes, we had heard a number of people talk about how there was an annual festival called Sailor's Day that was coming up during our time on the Faroes, and this was the day that it was happening. Every year, this festival gets the people of the Faroe Islands together to celebrate and give thanks to the sailors that bring a lot of the amazing seafood that the local Faroese people rely on for sustenance. It happens on the island of Borðoy in the town of Klaksvik. We were super pleasantly surprised to learn that everything, all of the food included, was completely free of charge. Unsurprisingly, the majority of the food on offer was local and delicious seafood. Super fresh and delicious. It was really fun to celebrate with the locals as it felt like the majority of the country converged on this tiny town to celebrate together. Probably our favorite and for sure the most popular stand was the one for fish and chips. While I waited in line, Tyler went to a bunch of the different stalls and brought back food, so we got to experience, I think, every single vendor that was there. And unsurprisingly, we're quite full by the end of the day. Afterwards, we drove around Funningsfjørdur, where we took advantage of a break in the foggy weather to take in the amazing views. The next day, we had another low-key day exploring some of the sights of Torshavn. Our first stop was the Open Air Museum, which is part of the National Museum of the Faroe Islands. It was nice to be able to tour around some of the traditional grass-roofed houses of the Faroe Islands and to get an idea of how people traditionally lived in the Faroe Islands. Your ticket also grants you access to the permanent exhibition at the National Museum of the Faroe Islands, which offers some insights into the local history and culture. For dinner that night, we decided to splurge a bit and decided to go to one of the best seafood restaurants in the Faroe Islands called Arstova. The restaurant certainly lived up to its reputation, and the food was delicious and the ambiance was lovely. The following day was pretty rainy, probably our rainiest day yet, but we decided to still venture out and explore and headed towards the town of Elduvík for yet another scenic drive. The one thing I will say about very rainy days is to not cross it out as a day where there's nothing to see, because one perk that happens is that waterfalls seem to emerge from everywhere around the country on a particularly rainy day, and we were very fortunate to witness this. It was one of the coolest things that we've seen. Also knowing that rain was in the forecast for the day, we had actually pre-booked a traditional Faroese dinner at a local Faroese family's home for this evening. There are a couple different ones that you can choose from. If you go to the Faroe Islands tourism website, they have some on offer, but we found that all of them were essentially booked up and were a bit pricier than we were personally looking for. We were fortunate that on one of our first days in the Faroe Islands, on the hike to Tralanipa that we talked about in our Faroe Islands Part 1 video, that we saw a flyer that advertised a local family just starting up with these Faroe Island dinners. And we decided to contact them and see if they had any availability, which fortunately they did. This family's home was located on the island of Miðvágur, which is the island that we first arrived on and where the airport is located. The dinner was lovely and the hosts were so warm and kind. We were beyond grateful that we had this opportunity to ask them tons of questions about what it was like to live in this beautiful part of the world. If you're interested in checking them out, check out their Instagram at Faroe Fish Dinner. On our drive home, we were rewarded with a beautiful rainbow. On our last day in the Faroe Islands, we took a scenic drive to the island of Eysturoy to the town of Runavík. We proceeded all the way to the southern tip of the island to the town of Nesvatn, where we had our lunch on a bench overlooking the ocean and the mountains. Not too far away was the town of Elduvík, which offered great panoramic views. Absolutely amazing. Since we had some spare time before having to return our rental car, we decided to head back to Gásadalur waterfall, which was one of the first places that we visited, and decided to just appreciate it one last time. We were so sad to leave the Faroe Islands, but we're so grateful for all of the amazing things that we saw, some of the amazing weather that we had, especially earlier on in the trip, and the great experiences meeting some of the local people. We can't recommend this destination enough. And we would both agree that it was probably one of the most beautiful places that we've ever visited so far. In some ways, it felt kind of like a blend between some of the most beautiful parts of Ireland and Iceland, all mixed up together. Alright guys, that is it for our Faroe Islands videos. If you haven't already, be sure to give this a like, a comment, and subscribe. And stay tuned for our next video where we take you to Denmark. See you then. Bye.